Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ensuring Compliance, the role of beverage tax surety bonds in the beverage industry. Today, I'm joined by Kyle Reiner, Beer Insurance Guy. Beer Insurance Guy, that's a new little name you put up there, isn't it?
Yep, that's what I do.
When did you first get into beer insurance, Kyle?
We are in year 14.
What made you want to engage with breweries? Insurance maybe isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but how did you go from just general insurance to working with this industry?
I worked at a brewery in college, so I've always kind of been into beer. And I guess this was probably like 2013, 2014 almost. I was an insurance agent, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. If I should focus, learning and reading books. It's like, niching is the way, right? So we were really good at insuring manufacturing companies. So be it, plastics, rubbers, whatever, breweries, distilleries, wineries, they're manufacturers of alcohol. So I started calling underwriters and going, hey, what if I started targeting, the craft beverage market? And they're like, I don't know, go try it. I wrote one brewery, I wrote 12, and here we are at 150 plus.
Many years later. Well, I'm very excited for today's conversation, but first, I'm also excited to have you join us as one of our partners for our Welcome to Indy event at CBC on April 28th at Guggenheim House Brewing Company. That's going to be awesome time. Are you pumped?
I'm pumped. I'm linking up with the Guggenheim House folks as well, and we're going to put out a podcast and talk about what's to come. But what's this, our third or fourth CBC welcome party now?
So this is the fourth we have done. I think you've been part of the last three, actually. So really appreciate that. And this is going to be a nice one.
It's one of my favorite things to do. It's like, you go to a different town and you have a bunch of best buddies there, and that's really cool.
Honestly, that's my favorite thing too, because everybody is some part of the CBP community. So everybody's, looking for conversations with strangers, which is one thing I always love about CBP events.
And that's the funny thing too. Like we'll all be on Zoom or recording this and that, and we never met in person. And then you go to these events and you meet, and you're like, you feel like you know each other already. For like you've been friends for years. You know what I mean? So it's really cool to put, just meet people in person, have some beers, just good friendliness. I love it.
At this point in time, you and I have met quite a bit over the years, but it's funny. There'll be some people that I see, and I'll literally ask them, like, have we met before? Because I feel like I know them on the level you just described, but I truly don't know. And sometimes they might not know the answer to that either.
Yeah, we're like, I don't know, maybe. But you feel, but you all feel like you did, right? Because we do the Zoom thing. So
100%. So today we're talking surety bond. So let's start basic. What in the world is a surety bond, Kyle?
Yeah, so it doesn't get talked about a ton. It's something that is required by state or by the federal government. Everybody who makes alcohol, tobacco, firearms needs to have a surety bond, right? So it's not a big talked about topic, but it's something that, as you are putting together your brewery licensing paperwork, your attorney should be asking for this. You should have this put in force. And a surety bond is, we can call it a surety bond. We can call it a beverage tax bond. It's really a federal excise tax bond or an excise tax bond. And essentially what it does is it ensures that, you, the beverage maker, are compliant with federal regulations, state regulations, and that you're paying your excise taxes. And like, if you go belly up and you can't pay your taxes, the bond essentially is triggered and then would pay those taxes for you. So awesome. It's a requirement,
Yeah, I guess a couple of years ago, the TTB changed the requirement a few years back. Tell us a little bit more about what they updated.
Yeah, I think they just got annoyed with how many breweries, distilleries, wineries were popping up, and they didn't want to do the paperwork anymore. So they changed the law. I forget what the year was, but I go back, I'm like, it's over 10 years now. But they changed the law that, hey, you don't need a TTB bond unless you're producing $50,000 in excise taxes. So that was just a hurdle that we didn't have to jump through anymore, a hoop we didn't have to jump through. I think it was, again, they didn't have enough people in the government to sit there and comb through all of these. So yeah, that disappeared. Now, pretty much every state that you operate in, you're going to need a bond, right? You're going to need this bond. So it varies state by state. Some states are wonky. Some have them, you might need a bond for product that is less than 4% alcohol. You might need one that is for more than 4% alcohol. West Virginia has 3 bonds. Every state does a little different. So that's why, it's something that we've developed relationships over time with the different states and with the bond carriers that just really make it easy.
And Kyle, what is the face amount of these surety bonds and how much do they cost?
So that also varies. Are you seeing that on your screen? Blinking?
It is all gone now. I don't know what was going on with your camera, Kyle, but you fixed it apparently. So you were saying, like, what's the face amount of these surety bonds and how much do they cost?
Yeah. So typically we're going to see like the minimum, right? A lot of a startup brewery, even breweries that are 10 years old, probably fit within that minimum limit. A lot of times, some of them are 1,000, but most of them are about $5,000 face amount. I've had clients who are like, "Yeah, we sent our $5,000 into the state, for our bond." I'm like, "Whoa, it's $100." It's like life insurance. You buy $1 million life insurance policy, you don't pay $1 million for it, right? It's $100 a month, whatever. So in this situation, I'm like, "Go get your $5,000 back. We're going to put a bond in force for $100, and every year it renews." So just saved you $4,900. But and when you go, like, if you have $1,000 bond or a $5,000 bond, they're usually both the same price.
Awesome. Now, Kyle, I would love for you to walk us a little bit deeper into this. Like, what exactly does a federal excise tax bond do?
Yep. So we have 3 parties here, right? We have the principal, which is you, the brewery. We have the surety company, which is the insurance carrier who's doing the bond, and then the obligee. And the obligee is usually the entity that's requiring the bond. So the state or the TTB, or maybe your municipality has its own. There's all sorts of surety bonds out there. But again, those 3 parties, you, the insurance company, and the state or the federal government. Now, what this really does, there's kind of 5 functions to a bond, right? 1, it's going to guarantee payment of excise taxes. All right. When all said and done, that's what it would do if triggered. It ensures that you're compliant with federal regulations. It protects the government and protects consumers. And, it's required for licensing issuance. Right? A lot of times you can't get your brewery license unless you have a bond. So a lot of times the licensing paperwork goes through and then they're going, "Okay, where's your bond?" And then they're like, "Kyle, we need a bond. Where's my bond?" Or they're calling from other states like, "Hey, we just found you on the internet. We need a bond." We can turn these around rather quickly. And it also protects the surety company. So if we really break that down,
what exactly is the surety company, Kyle?
So it could be, there's a number of insurance companies out there that offer bonds. It could be a Philadelphia Insurance. It could be a Hanover Insurance or Cincinnati Insurance. A lot of the main insurance companies will offer their own bonds. CNA Surety is by far the easiest that I've ever seen. A lot of these companies will require a 1, 2, 3 page document on paper, application or whatever. With CNA, I go online. I can do it in literally 4 minutes, get it all done, emailed over, PDF, yada yada. So it depends, and then there are some bonds that get tricky. If we're looking at again, we'll get into contractor bonds and janitorial bonds. There's some more specific carriers that'll do some of that, trickier stuff. And you have people who are really good underwriters of bonds. You have people who've never heard of them. In my insurance agency, there's 3 of us that are really good with bonds, and then there's a bunch of people who are going, "I don't know what a bond is." Right? So you just kind of, people who specialize in bonds kind of specialize in bonds. That's why when a brewery calls me, I'm like, "Yeah, I can take care of that," or, "Hey, you need this one," or "You don't need this one." Because again, they'll say, "Oh, we sent our $5,000 in." I'm like, "Okay, we'll get that back. We're gonna fix that. You don't need that." So yeah, it's a little tricky, but it guarantees the payment of the excise taxes. So we are required to pay federal excise taxes on the alcohol that we produce. It's going to ensure that you will pay these, right, in a timely manner. If you fail to pay the required taxes, the bond kicks in, boom, pay them for you. Again, if you're out of business, you're bankrupt, you don't have that $5,000 to pay that tax anymore, right? So you can trigger that bond, and then the government's happy because they'll receive the proceeds from it.
Awesome. Now, a few minutes ago, you mentioned they cost, say, $100 a year.
Yep.
Does it renew, or what does that look like?
Yes. So typically, you pay the insurance agency your $100, and we send it in. Every year after that, it's going to renew. You pay the insurance carrier directly. The funny, I guess this is also the government going, "Hey, we don't want a lot of effective dates," right? So if we issue a bond on June 20th, it's going to renew on June 30th, no matter what. So they go July 1st to June 30th. Every bond, even if I wrote it the day before, it's going to quick renew. So they all have the same effective date. I think, again, that's just cutting down on the work. I kind of, as you know, like in Atomic Habits, right? We're batching. We're doing all of these like items at one time with one effective date. It's just easier for them. I think that's why they do it. So yeah, so all your bonds will always renew. They'll end on June 30th. They'll start on July 1st. And oftentimes, like we can buy a 3-year bond, say it's $100 a year. But if you buy a 3-year bond, it'll be $250. Like they'll save you $50. But states like New Jersey are going, nope, not allowed. We want you to do the 1-year bond every year. It's got to renew. So now I just kind of, instead of guessing what states want, just get the 1 year. Boom, it's done. It's easy. Every year, all you do is you get your invoice in the mail, you pay it, it renews. And then it's kind of, out of sight, out of mind. But you just pay your $100 and move on. Hopefully you never have to use it, right? So hopefully we're bringing people into the tasting room, and we're relying on that CBP connects and the craft beer professionals to drive sales, so that we don't ever have to use our bottles, right?
I love that. But so many breweries now, as you know, are doing more than just making beer. They may have wine, they may have kombucha. Is there anything special that they should know with regard to surety bonds?
For sure. So you'll see that like cider, kombucha, sparkling wine, those all kind of fall under the wine bond. Some states will have a wine bond. The federal government, I don't believe the TTB even has a wine bond anymore. There's a federal distillers bond, but there's not usually distillery state bonds. So that's, again, that's where we make those phone calls. Hey, do we need this? Hey, does one exist? No. All right, the state got rid of it in 1982. We don't need it anymore. So yeah, depending on the product you're making, and again, also the ABV, like Oklahoma, right? There's some of these states where it's like you're not allowed to brew product over 3.5% or whatever. There are certain bonds for under ABV or above ABV. In some states, like I said, West Virginia will consider it like the thing of beer under 4%. They call it a non-intoxicating beverage, right? Something along those lines. So you need a non-intoxicating beer bond, and then if you want to make something that's 6%, you need an intoxicating beer bond, right? So yeah, and some of these states have archaic laws, like we will not accept a PDF. It must be printed. It must be hand signed with a wet signature. Yeah, it's wild. And then you gotta like hand deliver it with you can have like, what's that bird that used to deliver babies? Like you need to do it that way. Like they have their own rules and they don't stray from them. So every state's a little different. But ultimately it should be pretty easy.
And for a TTB bond, what information is required on those forms?
Andrew, you have the best questions.
I'm so interested, Kyle, so I want to know.
This is an exciting topic. Yeah, so the TTB and the state are very different. Like I said, that state bond is really quick. It just asks for a couple items of information. We always need your EIN for both of them, right? EIN number, full business name, any DBAs we want. But on the TTB, they want to know about your firstborn. They want to know what's in your closet, right? So they're going to ask for your social security number of every owner. Typically, every owner over 5% ownership. They're going to ask about your home address. Do you own other properties? Are you married? What's your net worth? They get really down this rabbit hole that it's like, well, why? But I guess they'll ask you, insurance agent, do you trust this person, this entity to pay this bill? Like, what is your recommendation? So obviously you're like, well, these are good people. They're going to pay it. They need to pay it. So, let's make it happen for them. But yeah, the TTB will get a little more in depth on what they're requiring. There's a little bit heavier underwriting.
So as we know, brewery owners wear a lot of hats. People and teams come and go sometimes. If a brewery's unsure if they have a surety bond, any recommendations for just even diving into that to find out?
I would ask their attorney, I guess, or whoever was there when they first set up their brewery documents, right? Because if they've been around 15 years and they don't know if they have a bond, like they just may not, or they can go back through their bills and see if they've been paying it. Maybe they're paying it and don't even realize it. I don't think there's a way that I could like look up, who has a bond and who doesn't if they're not my client. But ultimately, go back to your paperwork. Maybe your attorney filed it for you. Maybe your accountant filed it for you. That's the other thing too. As you grow, you might exceed that $5,000 threshold. You might now need a $7,500 or a $12,000 face amount bond. And your accountant a lot of time will be able to, calculate that for you, and they send it to me. We can edit it. If we add a location, sometimes depending on if you're going to brew at that location, you might need a new bond for that location. But if you're just adding like a tasting room, you might just be able to add that location to your existing policy. And again, it depends on the state. What does that state want? In New Jersey, if you want to open a new location, you must brew at all those locations. Therefore, you need a bond for each location. So it gets a little hairy. But yeah, as far as, how do I know if I have a bond? I guess you just have to go back through your documents or issue a new one. I think when in doubt, it's only $100. And I don't think that if you have two bonds, it would be all that much of an issue. You're double covered, I guess.
So I've heard with some of the bonds, you need to put a gold seal on them or get them notarized. Can you talk a little to that?
Yep. So on the TTB bond, you will typically have to take that to a notary. We have to put a gold seal on it from the insurance company. Oh, now you can use like a gold sticker, but otherwise they used to have those things that will like impress and give you a raised seal. So some of them, like in Virginia or West Virginia, you must have that raised seal. They will not accept a printed seal, that sort of thing. They want that wet signature. Some states will say that is considered a wet signature. So again, every state does a little different. What was your question?
You answered it about when you need the gold seal.
Yeah, so we file. Pennsylvania, we need to get that notarized. It doesn't need a gold seal, but they also, the form that prints out that you take to the notary doesn't really always like it. Like, this isn't normal. So I'm like, all right, the notary can use their own form and attach it, right? So again, every state does things a little different. Sometimes they want that 17 by 11 legal paper. They won't accept the 8.5 by 11. Now, sometimes, depending on your state, you might be able to upload your PDF of it versus mail it in or drive it down. Again, every state's a little wonky.
So talk to your attorney. I imagine they can help you out with these things.
Yeah, ask your insurance agent. Not a lot of insurance agents know how to do this, right? So we're always happy to help. It's, again, it's $100. It takes a few minutes. But that's where, like, I have really good contacts. I know the company I work with. Honestly, this is one of the best customer service things that I see in the insurance industry, or really anywhere. Every time I call somebody, they always pick up the phone, and everybody that I talk to can answer my question, which is unbelievable, and you don't see that anymore.
That is amazing.
And that's why, keep it easy. Some places you call, you get an answer, you hang up, you call again, you get a different answer, you hang up, you get a different answer. It's really good working with the carrier that we do. CNA Surety is one of the largest, I think, bond writers in the world, not just the United States. So they do a really good job. And again, everybody that picks up the phone has access to everything, has the same knowledge. And I've had maybe once in a while where they'll say, hey, let me put you on hold and ask. But for the most part, everybody's super well trained and they're extremely helpful. It makes it easy.
For the past 20 minutes, we've talked surety bonds. Is there anything worth going over again, and anything else people should know today?
What I will say to that point was, as I'm telling you about, hey, what do I need to sign? Where does it need a seal? Does it, if you put in the mailing address different than the brewery address, it'll probably get kicked back by your state. They won't accept it. So either don't put a mailing address on it or make sure it matches the brewery location. If you misspell something, if the zip code is wrong, if you don't cross a T, it'll get rejected. So the way I do it is I draw it up. Hey, I need your approval. Literally look at every letter. Look at your phone number. Look at everything. Because if something is one digit off, it'll get rejected. So we always look at the preview first. We get your sign off, and then we issue it. Sometimes you have the wrong EIN number in there. Sometimes it's an LLC on there, but you're an Inc., right? That stuff has to be, your business name has to be perfect. Again, bonds can change. We can increase them. And again, you want to get them done when you're applying for your brewery license. Kind of send it all in at one time.
That's awesome. Now, I love learning about surety bonds today, but I know you also always love learning. So we've already talked about Atomic Habits, which frequently comes up in these conversations. Yeah. Any book recommendations for everybody out on the internet today, Kyle?
Yeah, let me see what I've been reading. I'm reading a book right now I'm not excited about. I'm struggling getting through it. I'm on page like 50. It's called Life is Simple. It's about Occam's Razor. You familiar with Occam's Razor? So I picked it up thinking it would be like fun, and it's kind of killing me a little bit. I was led to that book because I just read a book called Little Bets, which I really liked. Which Little Bets was kind of like, we're talking about Pixar, and they made their first little baby, a toy baby animation, and then they did a little video with the lamp, right, which now is their logo. Toy Story was their first go at an animated movie, and that storyline was different, right? That went through a lot of changes before they actually got to Toy Story, which is kind of my favorite movie, honestly. I know every word to that movie. Actually, and before that too, Creativity Inc. is a great Pixar book. But
Creativity Inc. is a very good book.
That book kicks ass, dude. That book is great. But yeah, the Pixar story, and then like the little bet of Steve Jobs going, maybe I can, his daughter, he was like, asked his daughter what she wanted. She's like, I don't know, I would like, 10 songs in my pocket. He was like, how about 1,000? And then they did it, right? And then an iPhone and all these things, right? So these little bets, these little tweaks can really get you on the track to get to where you're going. Those are yeah, Creativity Inc. Little Bets is good. And what about you? What are you reading?
What am I reading right now? I literally just finished the practice of groundedness. Just really ways to be more present, ways to be self-aware, way to be, better listeners, way to just better balance your life. Not just to, read the book and be like, okay, these are great practices, but actually applying them. I think we're all guilty of that sometimes, reading these motivational, inspirational, business-like books. I'm like, oh, I love it. I'll tell Kyle about it. But do we do it? Do we hold ourselves accountable? And, as a kind of follow-up to that, next week, we're actually having a conversation with one of the people in the network of the author for that one. So we're going to be talking. It sounds a little dark and depressing, but it has got a really great meaning behind it. It's called Tragic Optimism, Responding to the Doom and the Gloom of the Beer Industry. And really, we're going to talk about the things that you all can do as brewery owners and decision makers and just people working in the space to kind of have a positive attitude and see greater success. So going to follow up the book with the conversation.
I will say that's cool. That's focused on the brewery industry. That's really neat. I don't read, and I don't think you read a lot of fiction. But I read The Art Thief, and that book was phenomenal. I guess it turned into a movie. It's kind of based on a true story, but it's it's fun. This guy goes to all these museums and steals all the artwork off the wall. Like,
talking about just like balance in life. I am trying to read more fiction, actually, Kyle, because sometimes
my wife's like, oh my God, you're reading fiction.
It's an escape, right? We get stuck in our jobs. We get stuck in business often. Yep. It's nice to read something or even watch something mindless that just takes you away.
Yeah, I read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo years ago in like college, and then so I just
you got a dragon tattoo after you read the book, right?
I did. I have 2 of them. Yes. I don't have any tattoos. You?
I have a few.
Nice.
We're digressing right now. I don't know how we got here.
Yeah, because that's what happens. That's good.
But bring it back. If anybody else wants to talk surety bonds, insurance questions, they want to hang out with you in Indy, how can they get a hold of you and learn more?
Kyle at craftbrewinginsurance.com. On Instagram, I'm really, utilizing the Beer Mighty Things podcast is, at Beer Mighty Things podcast. We're up to episode 219. And on St. Patty's Day, it'll be 220. That's always a fun one. I released I did an interview a couple of years ago with the guys from Guinness. And that is just a fun conversation that I put out every year, just because it's that good. They're a wealth of knowledge. But yeah, Kyle at craftbrewinginsurance.com, craftbrewinginsurance.com. And then again, at Beer Mighty Things podcast, hit me up. We'd love to have a beer with you. Everybody, let's go do it. Let's do up Indy. I don't know what to expect. I don't know. I just watched Hoosiers for the first time. So
you're ready.
I'm ready.
Well, awesome. Everybody, will see you in Indianapolis in late April at CBC if you're going to be there. If not, hope you can join us at CBP Connects Charlotte, North Carolina in June. You guys see Kyle everywhere. Everybody, have a great day. We'll see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you, buddy. See you.